Hello. So today we're going to get right into optimal exercise for health. Now, when I speak to patients about exercise, I'm very conscious of getting it right for the individual. So you might be someone who already does Ironman and regularly runs a marathon, lifts weights, does CrossFit, or you might be someone who's just starting out and really tailoring your optimal exercise to that individual is really important. But what we're going to do today is go over the evidence base for different types of exercise, but also how we can perhaps incorporate exercise into our lives for a bit more optimal health. So the proven benefits of exercise are huge. Chronic disease prevention in particular, things like stroke, type 2 diabetes and colon cancer, breast cancer can decrease by as much as 20 to 30% with physical exercise. Bone health, we know that resistance training and weight-bearing exercises enhance bone density, really important for postmenopausal women, but also in terms of anyone with family history of osteoporosis. Preventing things like osteoporosis will serve you well in the long term. And I'm thinking of my own family, but also the work that my husband does as an orthopedic consultant. You know, fractured hips in our older age group bring with it a huge disruption to your life, but morbidity and mortality rates from these fractures are incredible. So trying to give yourself the best possible basis, big strong bones is where we're at. Now, mentioning again anaerobic exercise benefits, these are things like sprinting, heavy weight lifting, high intensity, anything that makes you sort of hold your breath to get through it. These improve strength, power, endurance, but they also help maintain healthy body blood sugar levels. So we'll talk into where we've add anaerobic to our aerobic exercise and along with our weight bearing and strength exercise. Mental health, it is incredible the results we're seeing this year, even from studies in Australia. The University of Queensland have published in the BMJ this year meta-analysis of systemic reviews looking at what depression does in the face of exercise. Now, we can reduce depression by 50% with exercise. It needs to be specific and it needs to be tailored. But that's a way better outcome than antidepressants, which is really impressive. So whilst medication has its place, we really have to start leaning into lifestyle and exercise in particular for our mental health. Stress and anxiety. Physical activity lowers your cortisol levels, stimulates the release of endorphins and improves your mood. It gives you a bit more resilience. Those who exercise have been shown to have greater resilience in times of stress than those who don't. And then something I'm really passionate about is life expectancy. Moderate activity is associated with a 20 to 30% lower risk of premature death. In my own personal family, my mother died suddenly at 61, her father at 62. So I am really passionate about finding ways that my uncles, my cousins, and my children can improve their longevity and not just living longer, but living healthier for longer. So just touching on those types of exercises and the unique benefits. Cardio exercise is probably something that most of us will find easy to incorporate into our life. That is walking, jogging, swimming, cycling, dancing. These really do improve your cardiovascular health, lung capacity, endurance. And the evidence suggests that walking 30 minutes 5 times a week will reduce the risk of heart disease by 35%. 30 minutes 5 times a week, 35% reduction in heart disease. Now I'm talking to my family, the West of Scotland contingent. So important that we take this on board. 30 minutes can seem like a lot of time, but 30 minutes now can give you years later. It's important that we do things gradually. I'm not suggesting that everybody jumps up and goes for a 30-minute sprint tomorrow. I think getting out, walking in green spaces for 30 minutes is really worthwhile doing. And we're going to come back to that individualizing of sport in a minute. Now, strength training, we're looking at building muscle. It improves metabolism and enhances functional mobility. Patients will often come to me asking about exercise for weight loss. Now, unfortunately, exercise for weight loss can be quite inefficient. It is really hard for us to burn fat for energy during exercise. It is incredibly difficult and it takes a lot of time to get bang for your buck. However, strength training increases your muscle bulk. Muscle is where we hold something called glycogen. And glycogen is our body's way of storing energy, glucose, other than fat. So, for example, when we eat something, predominantly eating carbohydrates, we will stimulate our hormone insulin. That insulin has two jobs, many jobs, but two jobs that we're talking about today. One is to take that energy and convert it into glycogen for fast release, and that is stored in our muscle and in our liver, but really tiny storage spaces. More muscle, more storage space. If we surpass that glycogen storage, now bearing in mind we live in a time of plenty, we are never without food. If we surpass that glycogen storage capacity, our body will make fat. We will make adipose tissue. So we live in a time of plenty. Our storage of useful, quick release glycogen is pretty limited. Our storage of adipose tissue, as you can see when you see reports of super obese and people struggling with chronic long-term obesity, our ability to store adipose tissue is limitless. You can store adipose tissue forever and you can create massive stores of it. So how do we prevent that? Building muscle prevents your body from defaulting to adipose storage. So some weightlifting, body weight exercises, squats, push-ups, and resistant band workout. Anything that's going to build your muscle is going to give you a better metabolic standpoint. Strength training is also useful for insulin sensitivity. Like we say, when that insulin peaks with the intake of calories, if you cannot store your energy as quick release glycogen, you're going to store it as fat. But in that process, you're asking your body to listen to the insulin repeatedly, and your glycogen storage is full, so the insulin response deteriorates. So that's when you're developing that insulin resistance. So we know that building muscle improves insulin sensitivity. It will reduce blood sugar and it will help manage type 2 diabetes or prevent the development of type 2 diabetes. So put some strength work into your week. Anaerobic exercise. So anaerobic exercise is without oxygen. So it builds muscle power, improves athletic performance and boosts metabolism. Examples are sprinting, heavy weightlifting, plyometric exercises. So the plyometric exercises is that sort of excess speed against resistance. So sprinting, heavy weight and plyometric exercises. This increases your lactate tolerance and enhances muscular strength and improves your recovery time. So think of anything that you have to hold your breath to do. Heavy weightlifting or holding your breath to sprint. It's an important part. It's probably one of the most painful parts of introducing exercise. I think anaerobic exercise is the difficult one, the one that you have to really put your head into. Aerobic, jogging, walking, you can do for long periods of time. Anaerobic is that short bursts. Flexibility and balance exercises. And really, a lot of us, when we're busy, we don't think of these exercises as getting bang for our buck with dopamine, with calorie consumption. We're looking at flexibility and balance as a bit more of a lifestyle exercise. However, yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, very good at decreasing your levels of anxiety and improving depression. And interestingly, decreasing your anxiety, decreasing your stress in itself decreases cortisol, your stress hormone, which has an impact on our insulin as well. So it is perhaps more involved than we previously thought. But really important, I think, of even myself, I'm 47, and joint mobility, falls prevention, being able to get up off the floor. And it sounds ridiculous, but as we get older and we get stiffer, getting out of a car can look sort of comedic. But really, that's the telling time where you think, actually, we've got to be working on these skills, these flexibility, agility skills, in order to have protective mechanism in place as we age. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on HIIT, high intensity interval training. It has definitely been introduced and encouraged in the sort of last 10 years of my medical practice. We're told that this is probably the most efficient way to burn calorie. It improves both your aerobic and anaerobic capacity. So it's sort of switch on, switch off training. And it's short bursts of intense anaerobic exercise, followed by periods of rest and low activity. So a 15-minute HIIT exercise session can provide equivalent benefits to 30 minutes of steady cardio. And again, it brings me back to my own state. I find high intensity work quite hard to build myself up to, just because a 30-minute jog, I can clear my head, I can chat to friends, I can put the world to right, and I can relax. 15 minutes of high intensity, that takes a lot of grit and determination. So we're going to talk about practical tips as to how we can incorporate that HIIT session into our day. A lot of what we're talking about during the pillars introduction to your life is talking about bringing these pillars, whether it's nutrition or exercise, into your daily life. And it's all about habit formation. So it's about starting small and gradually increasing. And that might sound like a platitude that lots of people use. However, evidence has suggested that if your goal is go to the gym and do a 40-minute workout, that initial going to the gym to do a 40-minute workout seems insurmountable when you've got to get up in the morning, walk the dog, feed the kids, get the kids off to school, do a day's work, come home, make dinner. It can seem insurmountable to add a commute 40 minutes and a commute into the mix. So what we're suggesting is that you start with 5 to 10 minutes of activity before your daily grind begins. So if it's 10 minutes of squats and sit-ups and press-ups, it's 10 minutes. And that is your starting point. If it's 10 minutes of opening the front door, going for a walk, breathing in, looking at the greenery, getting that feel-good factor, that's your 10-minute start. If you're already progressed and you're someone who is exercising heaps at the moment, what I want you to do is bring the habit of that high intensity work in, that strength training and the flexibility training into what you're doing, and start small. If you are the weekend warrior or you're the marathon runner, but you're aware that you're not doing your flexibility, you're aware that your hip flexors are deconditioned, I'm talking about taking 10 minutes of your day to put that right. You got to schedule it in. It's got to be an appointment. Set a recurring time. Ideally, if you can make exercise a set period of your day And it doesn't need to be the same thing every day. So if you're a runner and you need a recovery day in between, rather than the recovery day just being a day off, that recovery day should be your stretching, your flexibility work, interspersed with doing your resistance training and your weight training. Link your exercise to your daily activity. So if, for example, you are very good at brushing your teeth every morning, make it such that you brush your teeth thinking about, right, what exercise do I start next? Is it a bit of stretching, foam rolling today, or am I going to do 10 minutes of Pilates? Am I going to do 10 minutes of yoga? Am I going to do 10 minutes of something a little bit different to what I would normally do? Incorporating things into your daily life, take an incidental exercise. We were evolved to be constantly in motion apart from the times of absolute rest. So we were supposed to not be sitting at a chair talking to a screen. We were supposed to be stood up, stand down, climbing, bending, lifting. And we know things like our low back, because in people who get lumbar back pain, we know that actually keeping that lumbar back pain mobile will be greatly beneficial. And that's because we were built to be mobile. We were not built to be in one position for long periods of time. Getting up every sort of 10 to 20 minutes just for a bit of a stretch, just to change the position of your low back will be useful. But looking at incidental exercise, taking the stairs at work, cycling to or walking from work, and actually things like when commercials come on, if you're watching your favourite show and a commercial comes on, like, that's the time I'm going to do a stretch. If it's at work and you think, actually, for me, a GP, and I'm seeing patients every 15 minutes, most patients I'm seeing probably for 35 minutes. But when my patients leave the room, I take that as my couple of minutes of, I do a stretch, I stretch out my arms, I stretch my neck, I stretch my low back, I touch my toes, I do a couple of squats. And it gets me the blood pumping again for my next consult. Also things like practically getting engaged in social activities. We know that running groups, walking groups, hill walking groups, cycling groups, participating in community sports or organised groups increase your accountability and motivation. So almost every big city will now have park run. Almost every big city will have Couch to 5K. Almost every big city will have training groups for people who are starting running, or walking groups, cycling groups. And I think initially you can feel like, oh, how do I get into this group? I can guarantee you everybody has started at a similar stage. And over the course of 12 weeks, you will become embedded into a new community. So get on your community Facebook pages, ask for who's got a walking group, a running group, join a local dance group. It's about that social connection. And we'll talk about that in the pillars of health when we talk about social connectivity. Sometimes leveraging technology works, like Strava, MyFitnessPal, wearing devices like smart watches, heart rate monitors. These can be useful when you're starting. I think I don't get too bogged down in them, but sometimes it's useful to see, okay, I'm going to start that incidental. I'm going to start taking the steps rather than the lift for this next week at work, and monitor your steps, your heart rate, your activity levels. Now, the common barriers that most people will tell me about is lack of time. Now, if you're anyone who scrolls on the phone, watches television, it is time to change that up. Opt for short, intense workouts. We get more bang for our buck from them. Or add in that incidental. In terms of motivation, it can be very, very, very hard to be actually motivation. And motivation doesn't last very long. Motivation is that initial spark, but you've got to have processes in place and you've got to have systems in place that make new habits easier. So sure, give yourself a goal. I'm going to run every second day. But for that, you've got to have accountability. You've got to be able to measure. So maybe that's a wearable technology. Maybe it's telling a friend or colleague or getting someone to do it with you. But it's also about building momentum. Something that you do every day is worthwhile. If you miss a day, that's a day missed. If you miss 2 days, that's you've broken your habit, and you must not miss 2 days. So when it comes to exercise, I challenge you this. Daily for at least 30 days. It's got to be something. It doesn't need to be a daily run, but it has to be something that you're doing for 30 minutes each day. Start short. That 30 minutes could be 10 minutes of vigorous walking followed by stretching. If you do it every day, you can build on it. If you're not doing it every day, you will find it hard to build momentum. If you're in pain, if you have physical limitations, of course, speak to a doctor, but choose low impact exercise like swimming, yoga, and you can always speak to your GP or your physio about something a bit more tailored. Environmentally, you've got to make your environment easy. Home workouts were massive during COVID because actually people wanted to do them. They had a bit more time and it was the only thing accessible. So I've got a list of accessible, easy access exercises for you to do at the end of today and in the notes. The evidence-based guidelines for physical activity for adults: 150 minutes of moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity plus 2 strength sessions per week. So 150 minutes of moderate activity per week or 75 minutes of vigorous activity plus strength training. Anaerobic activity, if we incorporate some short, intense workouts into a routine, that will improve our overall strength, our endurance, but also our metabolic health. And as we get older, we've really got to think about adding in balance and flexibility to the exercises to reduce falls. If you're already pretty inactive, I want you to start slow. Light activities like walking, building intensity over time. So it's not enough for me just to tell you to move more. I need to tell you the specifics. So this week, I challenge you 150 minutes of exercise. Okay? I need you to do some strength work and I need you to do some flexible work too. If you can fit in 15 minutes of vigorous activity per day, your metabolic improvement is immense. So consistency is what matters. Every day of this week, 7 days from now, I want you to take regular activity. It can be something different every day. And if you need that something different every day, here I'm going to suggest it to you. Day 1, 30-minute walk. Day 2, 10 minutes of sit-ups, squats, and press-ups with 20 minutes of stretching and agility work. Day 3, a gentle jog, walk, 30 minutes. 30 minutes, day 4. You can choose whether you want to jump on a bike or you want to go for a swim. If neither of these are accessible, you're back to 30-minute walk. Day 5, we're going to go back to doing that sit-ups, press-ups, squats, and stretching. Day 6, let's get that aerobic exercise going. I want you fast walking, vigorous walking for 30 minutes now. And if it's a bit of a push, I want you doing lamppost to lamppost. Fast walk to a lamppost, slow walk to the next lamppost. Day 7, this day is about looking at Pilates or yoga. I want you to have a specific look at our low impact, but really good strength training activities. And I want you to pick up a little bit of weight on that day 7. Good luck. I'll put some resources in the workbook and I want you now to do your reflection, take it through, work through as much as you can on your consistency, your plans and your goals as laid out in the questionnaire. Remember to save your questionnaires so that you've got your journal going forward. Amazing.